Okay, this is my review of the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. This is part of my project to read all of the Harvard classics, um, all of the Harvard classics in a year, or about a year time frame. So, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin is the first part of Volume 1 of the Harvard Classics. And going to separate my review into kind of three categories that stuck out to me. So one of them were things that would offend or surprise modern readers, okay, in the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. The second thing are thoughts on religion. I'm a religious person and I research religion, so Benjamin Franklin's thoughts on religion are interesting to me. And then third are Benjamin Franklin's views on self-improvement and the real value to me of the autobiography and what I liked about it. So as far as things that surprise or offend modern readers, the first thing that surprised me is how Benjamin Franklin's father chose his profession. And that seemed to be just a common thing back in the day, that your dad would choose your profession. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about because I got to choose my own profession. My dad would encourage me or not encourage me. I know that that's different culturally, but just Benjamin Franklin started off life wanting to be a sailor, and his father pushed him to be a publisher, to work in publishing like his older brother. And I think the world would have been very different. He also discouraged him. Benjamin Franklin for a short time also wanted to be a poet. And I think the world would have been very different if Benjamin Franklin had ended up being a sailor or a poet. So that was something that surprised me, how much influence the dad had on the career choices of people. It was also interesting to me the value of books at a time when books were just less available. It almost seemed to be a hobby. Reading was something that distinguished people differently, and to an extent it still does, but it was less so. It seems less so. The culture in which Benjamin Franklin's going into, you had to collect books. There was not only an intellectual barrier, but a financial barrier as well with books. So yeah, I was also surprised. So Benjamin Franklin's older brother at some point is imprisoned for printing something that the local government didn't like. So this is pre-Revolutionary War, pre-Constitution. And so the freedom of the press just obviously wasn't there. And so in the newspaper, who James Franklin is the publisher of, published something that the local government didn't like. They threw him in jail. And that was just kind of took me by surprise. But I bet you that kind of influenced some of Benjamin Franklin's thoughts on government. And it was just, Benjamin Franklin talks about it, it was just like a normal thing. Another thing that surprised me, or that might be offensive, there was a English proverb that Benjamin Franklin quoted, that he who would thrive must first ask his wife. I thought that was a funny proverb, but perhaps a little bit offensive nowadays. Some other things that are more offensive: at some point Benjamin Franklin runs away from home, and the excuse that he gives the captain of the ship, him and his friend, is that some naughty girl that he had gotten pregnant was going to make him try to marry her. And it's just interesting, there was such a double standard with sleeping around, with the idea of premarital sex. There was such a double standard that the girl was the naughty one and the bad one, and the Benjamin Franklin had to escape that girl. The girl was fictional. It was an excuse to get away from a relationship with his brother and kind of set out on his own. But just that double standard was somewhat surprising to me. Yeah, hopefully there's less of one nowadays. I feel like I personally, as a religious person, would want the boy to also be considered naughty, as naughty or more naughty even than the girl in that hypothetical situation. Maybe not more naughty, but as naughty. Another thing that would offend modern readers is some of the ways that he talks about Native Americans. He He praises them in lots of ways for their military tactics and some other things, but he also definitely perpetuates the drunken Indian kind of stereotype, and lots of the things he says about Native Americans are not flattering. Yeah. So those are the things that were perhaps surprising or would be offensive to modern sensibilities. So his thoughts on religion were very interesting to me. So he talks about religion. He enjoys hearing preachers, but Benjamin Franklin's views on religion are very utilitarian, very practical. The idea being that that religion should serve the end of making people better people. So in his youth, he talks about being a deist, kind of believing that God maybe exists, that there was a creator, but he's not involved in the world. And he would argue with people on religion. And maybe even some people might have even viewed him as an atheist. But he mentions in his autobiography that he feels like that did not produce good results in him or his friends. Morally, that he felt that that view led to poor moral character. So in his later parts of his autobiography, he talks more about being a little bit more religious, but still religious in the sense that in as much as it promotes good moral behavior. He often will refer to certain dogmatic things or scriptural tenets that he doesn't view as practical. He views them derogatorily, especially pacifism. He doesn't like the idea of pacifism during wartime. And he feels like it's, he refers to it once as a whimsical opinion that should be given over to more practical things. And I think that his view of religion isn't one that comes from the idea that you're trying to be obedient, subservient to a God that commands things, and so it's more of trying to make society better. And his general project in life, and you can tell his focus in life is to make society and individuals better. But it's not necessarily that orientation of being obedient to God, which I think is interesting, and I kind of disagree with him on. I think that religion, for me at least, it requires you to acknowledge that you might not know what's best for society or best for other people. Benjamin Franklin felt like he knew what was best for society and for himself, and that comes out in his religion. In some ways, he's very humble. He's willing to take a good advice from other people. He's trying to improve himself, and he's teachable, and he's trying to learn. He's very focused on self-improvement and in developing good virtues, which is admirable. But yeah, but I kind of disagree with his overall project on religion. I believe religion is more than just making you a better person. I think that it involves a view of the world. It's you're giving yourself entirely to God or gods or whatever it is you believe in the religion, and that's not what Benjamin Franklin believes in. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of perspective that I differed with him on. I do appreciate, though, what I value most from the autobiography is his views on self-improvement. He talks a lot about virtues that he believes are very important, and he talks about how he tries to develop them. He learns from other people. He takes advice from other people. So in that sense, he is very teachable, and he works hard to become a better person, and he works hard to make the world around him better. He seems very much like a small government. Oh, I see a problem in my community, let's try to fix it. Oh, I see a problem in myself, I'm going to try to fix this. I'm going to make a goal and fix it. I'm going to try to be more frugal, more industrious. And that is a very admirable trait that I feel like we can learn from Benjamin Franklin, that I think is a good thing. So yeah, so that's my review of Benjamin Franklin. I'm excited to read all the other books. It's on to the Diary of John Woolman.